Hey everyone, we're doing a skill builder today and we are going to be sewing vinyl crossbody straps. When you're sewing a vinyl strap compared to a cotton strap, the things that you need to consider are that it is a lot thicker, so you're going to have to account for that in your sewing. It's a little bit of a trickier material to work with because it can stretch and it can be a little bit harder to sew because of the stickiness of some vinyls. For this tutorial, you will need your vinyl, you will need double-sided tape, you'll need a rotary cutter and a ruler. If you are using rivets to secure your hardware to your strap, you will need your punch as well as your rivets and your rivet setting tool. You will need a way to apply strap ends. If you're using clamp strap ends, you will use the key fob pliers or whatever you use. You will obviously need your hardware itself. I like to also use a piece of grosgrain ribbon to stabilize a vinyl strap so that it doesn't stretch with use. You will also need a pen and you may need a lighter for cleaning up the ends of your threads. So let's get going. The width of your strap piece is going to be determined by the size of the hardware that you are using. You want your width of your piece to be 4 times the inner diameter of your hardware. So for mine, I'm using 1-inch hardware, which means my strap will be 4 inches wide, and I like it to be the full width of a roll of vinyl, which is anywhere from 55 to 60 inches. So when you cut your vinyl, you're going to open out your roll and using a long ruler, you're going to line it up with the straight edge of your vinyl. We're going to be cutting up here so that our strap is 4 inches wide and it will be the width of the fabric. If you're using hardware that is smaller, the width of your strap is going to need to be adjusted. So if you're using hardware that is 3/4 of an inch, 3 times 3/4 of an inch would be 3 inches wide. So you're going to cut your vinyl strap 3 inches wide. If you're using hardware that is 1.5 inch wide, that again is this inner diameter here, then your strap is going to be 4 times that, which would be 6 inches wide. Sometimes when you go to cut your vinyl strap, your piece of vinyl, your roll of vinyl is not going to be long enough. So I'm going to show you how I like to piece together 2 shorter pieces to get that full length that we would like for our strap. I have here as an example 2 pieces of 4-inch wide vinyl that I'm going to join together to make one longer strip. When you're joining your vinyl, you can join it with a straight seam here and then fold that open. The problem is when you then go to do your double fold on your vinyl to keep it all together, like so, it's going to be very bulky all in one spot of your strap. So the way that I like to do it is to join it on an angle. Line your pieces up 90 degrees to each other with the short straight side lined up against the long side here and the short side on the second piece against the long side of this top piece here. So there's a 90-degree angle. And what we're then going to do is clip them together. You want to keep these 2 pieces fairly secure together. What you then do is you draw a line from this corner here to this corner here and just sew that joining seam. So coming to where the 2 pieces of vinyl meet up here and where they meet here, you can see. And you're just going to draw a line. Move the clips out of the way if you need to at a 45-degree angle. And then if you go over to your sewing machine and sew this angle here, once that is sewn, this is going to fold open and you're going to have a join in your 2 pieces of your vinyl. So I'm going to go and quickly sew that line and show you what that looks like. With these 2 pieces sewn together, and they were sewn right sides together at a 90-degree angle and sewing just across this 45-degree angle here that goes from where they line up at this corner and also at this corner. When you open it out, you have 2 pieces that are lined up perfectly at the edge. Now we're going to trim the excess here and then take your double-sided tape and we're just going to fold that seam open. Keep your double-sided tape close to the edge of that seam allowance there so it's not in the line of your stitches. And just fold that open. And there you can see that you have a nice join between your two pieces. And when you do go to fold your strap together and you do your double fold, the bulk of that join is going to be well spread out across that section of the strap. So you would fold it in half and then again to the center. And then when you fold it in half for the last time, you can see that the join is well spread out. You can top stitch this join here also to keep that seam allowance nice and flat. Or if you don't like the look of the top stitching, if you want something more subtle, you can put a small piece of interfacing over there. Just make sure that you're not going to damage your vinyl when you apply that interfacing, as some vinyl is very sensitive to the heat. So that's how you would join up two small pieces if you needed to. But for this one, I'm going to be using one long piece. So let me go and grab that again. I'm just going to be cutting a 4-inch wide strip that is the full length of this roll of vinyl. With that strap piece cut, I'm now going to draw a line down the center of the entire length. The center of a 4-inch strap is going to be 2 inches. On a 3-inch strap, the center is going to be 1.5 inches, and so on. When I'm working with a stretchier material like certain vinyls or something that is a little thinner, I like to add some reinforcement using a strip of grosgrain ribbon. You can use stabilizer instead. Something like Decaville Light works really well too. I like to put the ribbon, which is 3/4 of an inch wide, in just one section of my strap, keeping it out of the seam allowance so that it provides that extra stability for the strap, which is particularly important over time with the weight that is on the strap that doesn't stretch, and some vinyls will even crack if they have too much weight on them over time. So this reinforcement will help with that. So the way that I do that is just pop a little bit of double-sided tape in one section and then stick that ribbon down onto the back of that vinyl. Now take your 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape and we're going to put a strip on either side of this center line. We're now going to do the first stage of our double fold. We are going to be folding the long raw edge into the center, stopping just shy of that line that we made earlier, coming from the top and the bottom. I like to start in the middle of the strap and work my way to one end and then to the other end, taking care when I'm folding to fold straight over to the middle and not skew the vinyl at all, as that can lead to twisting in our finished strap. If you're having trouble with your vinyl coming unstuck as you go, you can use a seam roller to press that fold or pop some clips on to hold that fold in place while we keep working. And we'll flip it around and repeat from the center on the other side, again making sure that as we fold, we are folding straight across and not twisting that strap at all, and leaving a gap of about 1/16 of an inch in between the two raw long edges of our strap. Now that we have the first two folds done, we're going to fold the strap over onto itself again to fully enclose this raw long edge of our vinyl strap. Lining up these two folded edges as well as you can. Before I take this over to the sewing machine to sew the strap itself, there are a couple of things I like to check. The first is check how well the edges are lining up. If your edges are not lined up pretty close to perfectly flat, then it is likely that you have some skewing in your folds. And if you don't correct for them now, then when you go to sew your strap, it will end up having twists in it and it won't sit nice and flat. So that is the first thing that I check. The second thing is check the finished width after it is folded, and it should be pretty close to 1 inch if you did a 4-inch wide piece, which should match your hardware. So you can just check if that's going to work with the hardware that you have, and that one looks good. And also check to see if your strap, even though it has clips on it and it's not going to sit perfectly flat, just make sure that it doesn't have any obvious twists in it, so that when you sew it, you're likely to get the best result possible. That all looks fine, so I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine and we're going to get our strap sewn up. There are a few things that I always like to check before I start sewing a vinyl strap. The first is make sure that my tension is correct. When you are sewing a vinyl strap, because you're going through so many layers of vinyl, your tension often needs to be increased. If you sew through 4 layers of vinyl with just your regular tension on your machine, the stitches may look fine from the front, but when you flip over to the back, they're not going to be as even as you might like. The tension of the top thread will pull up that bobbin thread so that you get a nice even stitch. So if you increase your tension, you're going to get a better looking stitch on your finished strap. So I recommend testing that out with some scraps of vinyl of equal thickness to your strap to make sure that you've got your settings correct. So that's the first thing. The second thing is make sure that your bobbin has enough thread in it, because you don't want to run out of thread in the middle of sewing your strap. I prefer to use a walking foot when I'm sewing my strap. You can, if you don't have a walking foot, use a Teflon foot or a rolling foot, but I find that the walking foot is going to give me the most even feed of my strap through the machine, so I'm not going to get twisting of my finished strap. If you are using one of these other options, then I suggest sewing down one long side, finishing off your stitches, and then sewing the same direction from the back so that you don't get as much twisting in your finished strap as you would if you sewed around the whole strap in one go. When you are sewing your strap, you want to use a longer stitch length. I like to use a stitch length of 4 on my straps. That may vary on your machine, and I use a seam allowance of 1/8 of an inch. The way that I like to determine where I am sewing is to look at my presser foot and pick a point on that presser foot that is approximately 1/8 of an inch from the edge, so that I can get a nice consistent stitch line. On this particular presser foot, that is going to be this edge here. I also have my hump jumper handy in case I have parts of the strap that are hard to get around, because as you can see, part of my foot is not on the strap, so that may make it hard at some points. I'm going to be putting strap ends on my strap so I can backstitch at the start here. The other thing to be aware of too is with the walking foot, the edge of your vinyl strap can get caught on this little piece here. So you just want to be sure when you're starting that you're getting your strap properly out of the way. Raise your presser foot and just make sure that that's flattened out. And that's the other good thing about starting at the end of your strap. If you have a couple of shorter stitches because it hasn't fed through properly, that will be hidden underneath your strap end. Make sure your presser foot is down when you start. And I like to pivot right at the corner. Ensure that your needle has gone all the way down before you turn. Watching again as you get here that it is not catching on the foot right here as it goes underneath. I've just flipped that around to start again from the other side, as I like to start with the open side of the strap first so that I can ensure that my layers are nice and lined up, and then that will make sewing the second side much easier because I'm not worrying about where my folds are meeting up. I'm watching here. I'm just going to raise the presser foot so I can get over that bulky bit, and then I will continue down this long open edge all the way to the other short edge of the strap. Before I get too far in my strap, I like to check how my tension looks so that if I need to make any adjustments, I can do it before I get too far into my sewing. and making sure that the strap is feeding through nice and flat and evenly. If I were sewing with a Teflon foot or a rolling foot, I would finish my stitch line here at the end of the strap and take it off the machine and turn it back around and sew from this end again, so that I'm not going to get as much twisting in my strap. But because I'm using the walking foot, I'm going to continue around and sew down the folded edge. Sometimes hand cranking at the corner there can help it to not miss that corner stitch. And make sure again that the bulk of the strap is not getting caught on your walking foot. And then we will sew again down the closed side of the strap. A couple of other things to consider when you are sewing straps to help you get a nice even line of stitches is where your eyes are looking. When I am looking at my strap going through the machine, I'm not watching my needle. I am watching the edge here that I have chosen for my specific seam allowance, so that I know that I'm getting a nice straight line of stitches. So I'm actually looking a little further ahead than where the needle is. And the other thing to consider is using a consistent speed as you're sewing, and stopping and starting as few times as possible will also help you to get a nice even stitch when you're sewing your strap. Back stitching again at the end. Reposition your needle manually if you need to get it lined up with those end stitches there. Before we build our strap, we're just going to take a look at it and make sure that we are happy with our stitches and that our strap sits nice and flat. It is difficult to get no twisting at all in your strap. So if you find that you have a little bit of twisting, you can lay some books on your strap. If you have a heat press, you can put it in a cold heat press, and that will help it to sit a little flatter. But with just a small amount of twisting, you are not going to notice that too much once you build your strap. As you can see, this end here is nice and flat. This other end is just slightly twisted, but it's not too bad. So I think that's going to be fine to get on with. Go to the end where your threads are, and we're just going to neaten those up. I like to pull them all through to one side, and then I'm going to tie them in a knot. And because this is going to be inside of a strap end, I'm just going to trim them down. If you're not going to be using a strap end, then you can tuck them inside of your layers of vinyl. Now we can build our strap. You will need your strap hardware, your rivets, your strap ends if you're using them, and then whatever you need to set both your rivets and to apply your strap ends. The first thing that we're going to do is choose which side of our strap we would like to have as the front and which side we would like to have as the back. Sometimes you may find that the quality of your stitches is better on one side than the other, or maybe there's a slight imperfection on your strap. So you choose which side is up and which side is down. And then you're going to put it with the back side facing up. Once you've chosen which side is the back, put the back side facing up and take your slider. We're going to slide the raw end of the strap without the strap end on through the slider. We will put the strap end on in a moment, but because some strap ends, especially screw-on ones, are quite bulky, it is sometimes tricky to get it through the hardware with the strap end on. So I like to put the raw end through first. Then you're going to tuck that through and check that that is the position that you want it to be in. So you want the outer side, if your slider has a front and a back, to be facing up with the fold over the middle of that center bar. And now we can place our first strap end. I am using clamp-on strap ends. If you are using screw-on ones, that obviously is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to pop a clip in of how to put on the screw-on strap ends as well. For this one, I'm putting on the clamps. Slide the clamp over the raw end. Make sure that as much of your vinyl is tucked inside of that end as you can. And I like to manually press it down first so that it just starts biting in. And then take my key fob pliers. Mine have this rubber on it. If yours don't have anything on it, you're going to want to put something around to protect your hardware. You want to make sure when you're pressing these sawtooth strap ends down that they're pressing straight down and not at an angle, otherwise those prongs will pull out. So just gently squeeze, make sure that they're biting into the vinyl. If you have a little piece like this where that vinyl has just come out a little bit, you can use your stiletto to just poke that in. Just gently slide that between the edges there, and then just press it again. Once you are happy that that is clamped in place, holding the pliers tight, just like to give a tiny pull to make sure that it's really bitten down into the vinyl layers there. When you're working with screw-on strap ends, because they're kind of bulky, I recommend putting the strap end on after you've put your hardware on, just so that you don't struggle to feed the strap through your strap end or your swivel once you've got the strap end on. So working with the back side up, just slide your strap through your slider. The slider also is the back side up. So if you flip it just to check that's right, this is the front of your strap and the front of your slider. And then you're going to work from the screw side. Slide that over the end of your strap and take your screws. I like to put a tiny little bit of Loctite, the red thread locker, on my screws. I'm just going to put a tiny drip here. You want just a teeny amount. It does bleed a little if you have an absorbent fabric. Then grab your screws. That in place. Then you're just going to screw that in, making sure that you've got something over your work surface to protect it. Now what we're going to do is place our rivets. I like to use 2 rivets for my straps. 1 is fine also. You can measure them out or you can eyeball them. Consider when you are placing your rivets how you're going to place them in relation to where the bar is. I tend to place one here in that gap so I can get that into my rivet press, and then the other here so that it is far enough away from the clamp on my rivet press that I can still get it placed well. So I'm going to mark those now. Just going to place it in the middle of the strap. You can mark it with a pen, or you can mark it with something sharp. Just feel for where that bar is. The other thing that I like to do is grab the cap of a rivet and just have a look at the spot where I marked and check that that is going to fit between the sides of that slider. That looks good. And then the other placement will be down here. The specific placement this way doesn't matter as much as the placement in the center of the strap, making sure that there's enough space next to your strap end for your rivet to go on also. And then again, pressing the cap only, just to make a little mark so I can see if that placement is going to work or if I need to adjust it. And that looks good to me. So with your clips in place to hold the 2 layers together, grab your punch, pop those holes in, punching through the folded strap. And then you may find it's also easier to punch your hole with the slider flat rather than sitting up. Then before we set those, I check that the placement is centered on the back too. And I'm happy with that, using longer rivets so that you can get through all of the layers, because we have 8 layers of vinyl here. I'm going to pop our stud piece through all the layers in both spots. Checking again that we're happy with how centered they are. And then the cap on the other side. And then I'm going to go and press this with my rivet press, making sure that as I press them, that I am getting 2 clicks so that I know that it is fully set. I find the slider end to be trickier to set, so that is why I do the slider end first, so that I'm not also working around the folded strap when I'm trying to place those rivets. So with those 2 rivets set and that adjustable slider in place, we're now going to place our swivel hooks. Keeping the back side up, take the other raw end of your strap and you're going to slide your swivel on with the swivel itself up. This is the front of your strap and this is the back of your strap. And you're just going to slide that down to the end here. Take the raw end again and you're putting it through your adjustable slider. And what that then does is encloses this folded part of your strap. And you have your swivel here facing out. So if this is accidentally facing this way, you can either flip it around if your opening is big enough, or slide this out and then turn it around before you set your rivets at the other end. So that one is on and that is all enclosed. Working now at the other raw end, we're going to put our other swivel on. We now have our strap with the front side up, our slider in place, and our first swivel is on. Slide this swivel hook with the hook part facing up. And now we're going to place our other strap end. The same as we did for the other one. Place it over the raw end, keeping the edges of the vinyl tucked in. Manually press it down to keep it in place. You can check before you press it too that your vinyl is not sticking out, but it may still squeeze out when you actually press the strap end together. Make sure it's tucked in. Take your key fob pliers and gently press, putting the pressure over where those teeth are. Press that together. If you notice that it's starting to poke out as you press it, you can always grab your stiletto to just tuck that in. Check the other side. Gentle squeeze. And then once it's bitten down, holding it in place, we're just going to give a gentle pull on the strap to make sure that it's really bitten down into that vinyl. Now we're going to place the last 2 rivets. Slide your swivel up to this end, leaving a gap of about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and fold that over. Now we're working again from the back. You can match the placement of your rivets from where you put your slider on. The gap between mine is about 7/8 of an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch. So making sure you have enough space here, grab your ruler, centering it again, and being aware of where your strap end is and of where this bar is. You just want to make sure that you have enough space there. I'm going to grab my cap, and the first thing I'm going to do is work out the placement from my strap end. So just pop that there. I'm just going to press that down to make a slight indent. That will come out if I decide I need to move it. And then using my ruler, try to match the measurement from the other pair of rivets. And if I put that at the equal point here, that's going to be too close to my bar. So I need to slide it a little bit more. And again, you can do just a single rivet if you want. I like to do 2. Noting if you do 2 and you have to fold your strap over more, it's going to take away from the total length of your strap. So again, I can still kind of see that, but I'm just going to press it in again. And then measuring, it's going to be about here. And that's going to be enough room. Now you can check if it's enough room, again, by taking your cap and just popping it in place here, and then feel if there's going to be enough room for your rivet press to get past that bar, and that one is fine. So I'm going to put clips on to hold the layers in place. Take my ruler and make my final marks for my rivets with either a pen or your stiletto. Then measuring again. And then I'm going to punch those holes, punching through the 2 layers of the strap. Pop the studs through. Click my sockets in place. And then I will go and set those 2 rivets also. And those rivets are set in place. And there you have it. That is your finished final strap with very little twisting, so that you can use that on whatever bag you like. You've got your big slider so that it is easy to adjust the strap. And you know what you need to do a little bit differently when you're sewing a vinyl strap compared to a cotton strap to get the best results that you can possibly get. Hope that helps. Thanks, everyone.